Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Today I am going to be teaching you how to create a 4-function calculator, addition, multiplication, division, and subtraction using functions. Now I'm a bit sick, so I might sound a bit down throughout the video, but I hope you get the main points that come with this project video, which is how to use functions and especially how to use parameters within these functions. You will also be learning something called recursive functions, which is basically a precursor to loops. It'll allow you to loop through your code. Let's say your user enters in something random, like gibberish. You'll be able to repeat what you ask them using recursive functions. So let's get into how we do that. So this is going to be our first checkpoint. We've created a function called main, and this is where the user will be asked to input a function. Do they want to add, subtract, multiply, divide, or exit the program? So let's go through this. First, we have a doc string up here that explains the function. Every single function that you make should have this, because later on when you come to edit your code and you don't know what your function does, you'll save a lot of time by just making a quick little doc string saying what each function does. Next, we make a multi-line string, which is how I can ask such a big question and show them what each function is. So I ask them to enter a function, add, if you want to add, then we say add, if you want to subtract, sub, multiply, mul, and so on. So now let's move on to this conditional chain. This conditional chain is where we check to see if the user's input is one of the functions listed. So we check to see if it's add, right? And we use .upper because let's say they enter lowercase add, it will still work because we take their input and we uppercase everything. Remember, this is from unit 2. Then we ask the user to enter 2 numbers, and then we'll add those 2 numbers using the add number function. Now you might be wondering, why can't we just say num1 plus num2 and you can just print that? Well, you can do that, but I want to show you why we should use functions instead. Because sometimes it's not as easy as doing num1 plus num2. Sometimes you have to do 4 or 5 lines of code, which will be easier to understand for the user if you just put it inside of a function. Because let's say we're going to use the addNum function in another function, right? For example, if you're finding the average of like a list of numbers, you will have to use the addNum function. Instead of doing num1 plus num2, you can just say addNum num1 comma num2. Might be a bit confusing, and yes, you're right, num1 plus num2 is better, but I want to show you guys why functions are useful. And then we do the same thing for subtract, multiply, divide. Now this is something different that you might not have encountered yet, and it's the exit function. So this is an inbuilt function, and to do that you're going to have to go up here, and remember importing, we're going to have to import sys, or more specifically from sys import exit. Now what is sys? It's a short form for system, and you can always hover over them like this and it'll tell you what it does. See, exit exits the interpreter by raising the system exit function, which basically means that when we press exit, let's do it, the code basically crashes. And it's an intentional crash, so if this happens, the user probably will be like, okay, that makes sense because I wanted to exit the code. The reason why we do this is because we're actually going to be looping through this main function using recursive functions. So what are recursive functions? Well, as you can see, when I define the main function runs all of this. At the very end, we run the main function again, meaning we'll go all the way back up here. We'll run through the code. Oh shoot, main. Let's go again. Run through the code. Oh shoot, we reach main again. And it'll keep on going like this forever. So there's a better way to do this, but this is also very useful in our text adventure game series. We're going to be using this rather than for loops or while loops, because we're going to have a lot of functions and this is just way more efficient. But you might be wondering, if it goes on forever, how will I stop it? Well, that's what this exit command is for, remember? They can enter exit and then they can exit out of the loop, instead of running forever and crashing your computer. Yeah, that wouldn't be good. Luckily, most programs have an inbuilt infinite loop protection system, because back in the day, computers used to crash if you made a infinite loop. But luckily now it'll just say you've made an infinite loop. Stop the program. And then of course we call the main function at the very beginning, because if we didn't, then nothing would run. So we call the function in the beginning to start the loop. It runs all of this and then calls the main function again, running all of this again and again and again until we reach exit. You may have noticed before that our add num, subtract num, multiply num, and divide num functions didn't work. Well, guess what? Now they do, because I added them up here. Now this might seem, again, a bit intimidating, but remember, I will go through each and every function. But first, this is our completed code right now. So let's run it and see what happens. Remember, we can do lowercase add. We'll enter number 8, another number 7. It works. Let's try subtraction. 8, 7, 1. Now, I did not complete the multiplication function for you because I want you to do this on your own. So I just said under construction. Okay? And then if we exit, we're basically done. Now let's go up and check out these functions. Okay, and then we run the code again, so we can go through this step by step. Okay, let's take a look at add num. So we have two parameters, n1 and n2. What are these? Well, these are like placeholders for the arguments that we bring in. So we can think of it like this. We have variables, n1 and n2. They're not equal to anything yet, but when we call the function, we will set n1 equal to something and we will set n2 equal to something. How did we do that? Down here, where we ask the user for input, num1 equals input something, right? Num2 equals input something. And these numbers were 8 and 7, and then we just plug them in here, 8 and 7. So now n1 is equal to 8 and n2 is equal to 7. Let's ignore this try statement for now and let's just look here. Okay, we have 8 and 7, but remember they're both something called strings, meaning that you can't perform math on them, so we have to convert them into floats. Floats are like integers, but they're decimal points. Basically, instead of 8, it'll be 8.0, and this is how we can get like fractional values as well. So yeah, if you convert 8 to a float, it'll be 8.0, 7 to a float, 7.0, 8.0 plus 7.0 is 15.0, which is what we got, I believe. Okay, now what does this try and accept statement mean? Originally, I didn't want to teach this to you yet because this was a bit complicated, but I feel like you guys are at a point where you most probably are able to understand this. You don't have to use this. This is used by professionals to make sure that their users don't enter something like random. But if you don't have to do this for everything, you can just have some bugs here and there. I wouldn't recommend it though. So if you really want your game to be good, you want to handle every single option possible. So let's take a look at it, right? Let's say I enter add, but then I enter LOL because I want to troll the system, XD. Luckily, instead of just crashing, we will use the try and accept. So what does this do? Underneath it's like a form of an if and else. Underneath the try, we will run something. It could be a lot of code, right? And then the accept is when, let's say we run the try and there's an error in the try. Instead of just crashing, whatever is underneath this accept statement will happen. Let me repeat that again. Let's say you're trying to do something, right? But there's a chance that there could be an error. Instead of allowing that error to happen, we can use the try and accept statement to make the error print out something else instead of just crashing the entire code. and we'll be using this a few times in our text adventure game as well. If you don't get this, please don't hesitate to ask us on the Discord. I've said this a lot of times already. And the subtract num function is the same thing. The multiply numbers and the divide num functions are both under construction because I don't want to make them, I want you guys to make them. Finally, I want to go over some challenges that I want you guys to do in your code that I haven't done on purpose to make your calculator better. Okay, so I've ranked these by mild, spicy, and ultra spicy. Okay, so let's go over them. First, make 4 more calculator functions, not including the add, subtract, multiply, or divide functions that we've used. So something like maybe exponents, like 2 to the power of 3, 4 to the power of 3. Maybe something like adding 5 numbers or finding the average of 5 numbers. And average is basically finding the mean. Let's see, what else could there be? Remember the modulo function? It takes the remainder, like 7 modulo 2 is 1, because 1 is the remainder of 7 divided by 2. You can also add that in your calculator functions. Think of something, maybe even I haven't thought of. Another thing that I like you to do is to make your calculator text look a bit more clean. And how we can do this is use the /n, \n. So let's look at it. If you do \n, this means that we have a new line. We can add like 4 \n's. It's kind of like another character, just like an A or a B or a space. This is also another character that represents a new line. So let's run this. Add. See, we have 4 spaces in between. Isn't this kind of cool? You don't have to use this \n, but I recommend you do in order to make your text look a bit more clean. The spicy challenges are hard. So if you think you can do it, then I recommend you give it a shot, but it will be hard. Even some of our mentors might have trouble with it, but they will be able to help you solve it. The first one is to allow the user to choose how many numbers they want to add or multiply. So like, let's say the user wants to say, I want to add 7 numbers together. Then you, instead of saying enter a number, enter another number, they can enter 7 numbers and then we call the function. Okay. Also, if you want to, you can store the user's current answer in a temp variable so that they can use it in their next answer. What this means is, if you've ever used a calculator, you know that you can, like, let's say we do 7 plus 8 is 15. We can use that 15 in our next calculation instead of just typing it all over again. All we have to do is type in like temp or t, which is helpful if you have like a big number like 7.10305078, something like that, right? But that's also going to be kind of hard. So if you need help, ask us. And then the ultra spicy challenge is create a GUI, so like an actual calculator that you can click buttons on using your mouse. This will be really hard, and I recommend finishing every single unit before getting onto this one. Anyways, good luck. I hope you have fun making this calculator go crazy just like any other project.